Hi boys and girls, welcome to our first day of math e-learning. I'm really excited to teach you a new lesson on multiplying mixed numbers by whole numbers. That's going to be our target for today. And we're also going to do a little bit of review with vocabulary terms and reviewing how to multiply fractions by fractions. Let's start with some key vocab words that are really going to help you today in your lessons with multiplying mixed numbers by a whole number. First, let's start with what a fraction is. Remember, a fraction is a part of something. It's not a whole number like 5. It is a part. It's not a full whole number. And we always have the numerator on top and the denominator on bottom. So a fraction is a part of something. A mixed number, though, is different. A mixed number is when you have a whole number and a fraction. It contains a whole number and a fraction. For example, 1 3/4. I could say I have 1 3/4 pounds of chocolate in my house right now. So I have one full bag and I have 3/4 of another bag. Can you guys think of other mixed numbers that you can use? I can think of one like 1 7/9. Mrs. Bell ate 1 7/9 of a pizza on Friday night. Or you could have something like 10 1/3, 10 1/3. So a mixed number is when you have that whole number and a fraction. Finally, I want to talk about improper fractions. And remember, we used our British accents with this in class. So an improper fraction is when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. It's improper because we cannot leave our fractions like that. Typically, our fractions have a lower number in the numerator than the denominator, but an improper fraction, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So today we're going to be looking at multiplying mixed numbers and using some of these vocabulary words in our lesson. Okay? Next up, what I want you to get out, if you have a scrap paper or a whiteboard or something where you can follow along and do some of the practice with this, I would love for you to do that. I'm also going to now share my whiteboard with you guys so we can do some more review. So just bear with me for just a second as I get this going for us. Okay? Let's just do some review. Let's think about some review here. So for example, let's review if I have a fraction times another fraction, okay? So here I have 1/3 times 1/4. Let's think about how we can multiply these two together. Now when we have a mix, or when we have two fractions, like 1/3 times 1/4, I first am going to multiply my numerators. So I will show you down here, I will do 1 times 1. That gives me 1. So I know in my problem here, 1 times 1 is 1. Next, I want to multiply my denominators. Here we have 3 times 4. Well, I know 3 times 4 is 12. So here I can put 3 times 4 equals 12. So 1/3 times 1/4 gives me 1/12. Let's see if you can try this one. Can you try this one for me? 1/7 times 2/5. 1/7 times 2/5. Take a second and see if you can try that for me. Okay. When you multiplied 1/7 times 2/5, you should have had 2/35. 2/35. You should have taken your numerators, 1 times 2. 1 times 2 should have given you 2. And then you should have taken your denominators, which is 7 times 5. 7 times 5 equals 35. Hopefully, thumbs up, you guys got that one correct. All right, what I want to review next with you guys is how you're going to multiply a whole number by a fraction. So for example, if I have 2 times, let's say, 1/7. 2 times 1/7. Now this is a little different because when I see the whole number 2, I don't see a denominator. So when I'm looking at 1/7, I think, well, it's going to be difficult for me to multiply 2 times 1/7. Well, there's actually something you can do. We know anytime we have a whole number, it's the same thing as saying 2/1. Because when I do 2 divided by 1, it still gives me 2 wholes. So I can rewrite my whole number as 2/1 in order to multiply it as a fraction. And now I just follow my same steps as I would do before. I multiply the numerators. 2 times 1 would give me 2. Then I would multiply my denominators like I would. Here I have 1 times 7. 1 times 7 equals 7. So over here, I would put 1 times 7 is 7. So this answer would be 2/7. So not much has changed. All I have done if I have a whole number is I just add that 1 underneath it because it still contains or still makes it a whole number 2. I want to give you one to try like this. See if you can try one on your own. Five and 1/9. Take a moment and see if you can try it on your piece of paper or on your whiteboard. All right, you should have had an answer of 5/9. 5/9 should have been your answer. When you see this whole number, you should have had 5/1, which made it a fraction. Now I would multiply my numerators. 5 times 1 should have given you 5, and 1 times 9 should have given you 9. So your answer of 5/9. Okay, now what I want to do with you guys is I want to talk about how we can multiply a mixed number times a whole number. So here I have a mixed number times a whole number, okay? When I see a mixed number times a whole number, I actually think of this as almost two separate math problems. For example, I see the whole number 3 and 4. So I first see 3 times 4. That's one way I can think of this problem. And then I also see it as 1/8 times 4. Because if I split these two up, it's kind of like I have two separate problems. So here now I have 1/8 times 4. So I see my 3 times 4 and my 1/8 times 4. I just took this number here and I split it into two separate multiplication problems. Well, when I look at it this way, it's much easier for me to multiply. We know how to multiply whole numbers, and we know how to multiply a fraction times a whole number. So here I can go back up to my problem and think about, well, 3 times 4 I know is 12. So that's going to be my whole number part of my answer. And here I have 1/8 times 4. Well, remember, since this is a whole number, I can put a 1 underneath it to make it a fraction. And now I can multiply. 1 times 4 I know is 4. And 8 times 1 is 8. So after I break up those two problems, I see the whole number 12 and I see the fraction 4/8. Well, I'm going to put those back together and write it as 12 and 4/8. Or I know this can be as 12 and 1/2. So just like I split it up here, 3 and 1/8, split it up to each one, I put it back together for my answer. So it's kind of like I'm taking 12 plus 4/8 equals 12 and 4/8. So that is how I multiply a mixed number times a whole number. Let's see if we can do another example like this together. Go ahead and erase your board or get out your scrap paper. Let's try this one. 2 and 1/9 times 3. 2 and 1/9 times 3. Okay. Now remember, when I see the mixed number and the whole number, I want to think about splitting these two up into two separate multiplication problems. So first I'm going to multiply the two whole numbers. So I'm going to have 2 times 3, which I know is 6. Then I'm going to take the fraction and multiply it by the whole number. So I'm going to have 1/9 times 3. Now once again, this is a whole number, so I'm going to put it over 1. Here I would have 1 times 3 equals 3, and 9 times 1 equals 9. So after I broke it up, I now see the whole number 6 and the fraction 3/9. So I'm going to take it as 6 plus 3/9, which is going to give me an answer of 6 and 3/9. So 2 and 1/9 times 3 is 6 and 3/9. Back reviewing, when I have that mixed number and my whole number, I just split it up into two separate multiplication problems to get that final answer. All right, let's see if you guys can try one. See if you can try this one by yourself. Okay. 4 and 1/4 times 2. Take a moment and see if you can multiply this by yourself. Okay. Hopefully you had some time to solve it. you should have had 4 times 2 equals 8. And 1/4 times 2 should have given you 2/4. So you should have had an answer of 8 2/4 or 8 1/2. Okay. Now sometimes there might be some examples today, and I want you to make sure you feel comfortable with them. For example, I might have something like 2 3/5 times 3. Okay. I'm still going to follow my same steps. I'm still going to multiply the whole numbers. 2 times 3 I know is 6. And I'm still going to take that fraction and multiply it by the whole number. So I would have 3/5 times 3. Well, I know that's a whole number, so I'm going to make it over 1. And this would give me 9/5. Now, while you're looking at this, you're probably thinking, Mrs. Bell, that is an improper fraction. It is improper. You cannot keep this fraction as 9/5. We have to convert it back to a mixed number. Well, we know how to do that. We take it, basically we just divide 9 divided by 5. So we can do 9 divided by 5 because I cannot keep it as 9/5. 5 can go into 9 one time. 5 times 1 is 5. And then I have 9 minus 5 is 4. Now remember, we can take our remainder and write it as a fraction. So this would be 1 4/5. So 9/5 is equivalent or equal to 1 4/5. So now I'm going to take my mixed number here and add it to the whole number from the previous problem, or the previous part of my question, 2 times 3. So I'm going to go back up here and make it easier. I have 6 wholes plus 1 whole and 4/5. That would give me an answer of 7 4/5. Okay. Hopefully a lot of you are remembering how to change that improper fraction back. I cannot write it as 6 9/5. I can't write it like that because that is an improper fraction. So that's why I can convert it back to that. Okay? So we've learned today some steps on how to multiply a mixed number times a whole number. So we learned, the first thing that we learned is we can take a whole number times a fraction and we can put it over 1 so that we can multiply. That's the first thing that we really reviewed today. The second thing that we learned today was how to take that mixed number and multiply it by a whole number. We have to take the 2 whole numbers and multiply those separately. And then we take the fraction and the whole number and multiply that separately. Once I've multiplied the whole numbers and I've multiplied the fraction and the whole number, I'm going to add those up, which would give me an answer of 6 3/9. Okay. All right. Before we close for today, I hope that you guys had a great lesson. I hope that you were able to learn some new things about multiplying mixed numbers and fractions. Today, you're going to go back into your Google slide that I assigned you and do some of those practice problems with multiplying mixed numbers. All right. Have a great day, boys and girls.